A darkness in the storm. The evening sky was a dark, muted black and gray, as the storm clouds had begun to gather since before I had started my journey home. The moon was hidden from view by the thick waves of clouds that rolled in above the hills, bringing the cold rain and darkness. As I progressed, so did the storm, turning from a mere shower into thundering torrents of rain, sheets of icy drops that fell with unrelenting fury. The rain fell in a slanted stream, and trees whipped their branches in the high winds. As I neared my home, the storm had reached an incredible intensity, and the dark night had descended completely, making visibility very difficult. And as I came over the steep hill that led to my home, illuminated in my headlights, I saw a small figure swiftly running down the sidewalk, dark, wet and matted from the rain, yet unidentifiable as to exactly what it was. I pulled into my drive, taking a quick glance across the street to see if the creature was discernible, but the blinding rain made it impossible. Believing the figure to be a small animal, I made my way up the cement stairs to my front door. As I stood searching for my key before the large wooden door, through the howling winds, I thought that I could hear the sound of something crying, a cry of pain or fear. I wasn't sure of what was causing the sound, but I couldn't disregard the fact that it may be human. Had the creature been a small child lost in the storm? Someone's pet that had slipped out into this horrible night? As I turned the key to unlock the heavy door, at that exact moment, the cry turned into a soul-haunting shriek of pain or terror, which made my blood turn as cold as the storm-battered night. I turned to make my way down the stairs, taking my time as the fallen dead camellias that covered the walkway were as slippery as ice. Through the winds and rain, the crying grew in volume, and I knew now that something was in distress or injured, so I was determined to come to their aid, whoever or whatever it may be. The water was flowing down the street, rushing through the gutters as I stood and tried to pinpoint the source of the crying. Straining my eyes through the rain, I thought I saw a small shrub moving too closely to the ground for it to have been the wind. The rain was streaming into my eyes as I held up my arm in an attempt to block the onslaught. I tried desperately to make out any sign of movement, when at last I caught a glimpse of a shadowy form half hidden in the dark and fog, partially concealed behind an old tree. Barely able to discern the shape, let alone the actual size, from the shadows it slowly began to reveal itself, the mist seeming to help outline it, and much to my worry and dismay, it appeared to be that of a very small child. Slowly I stepped into the soaking street to walk towards the figure. I called out asking if everything was all right, but I heard nothing save the muffled whimpering and sobbing continuing on. As I approached the side of the street nearest to this lonely form, a car suddenly came speeding down the wet street, lights flashing and tires struggling to make contact with the wet pavement. I threw myself back to avoid the vehicle, momentarily losing sight of the mysterious shape in the store. When the car had passed, I ran across to finally see who or what was so lost in the cold night, but to my confusion and surprise, it was gone, nowhere to be found. I called out, I searched, I yelled in desperation. I circled the old tree where it had appeared in the pouring rain, standing in the exact spot where the shadowy form had stood moments before, yet I was all alone. Deciding my mind had played tricks on me, I retreated back across the street to my home, thinking that it must have been a small creature that had been caught in the rain after all. The rain and darkness had convinced me that the form was something other than what it really had been. There was a pause in the violent downpour as I crossed the wet, black street and headed back to the walkway that led to my door, soaked and chilled to the bone. And as soon as I placed my foot upon the first step of the stairs, I stopped in terror as I heard a faint, haunting sound coming from my dark house through the crack in the wooden door that I had left open in my haste. The moon had broken through the thick, dark clouds as if it was watching me, casting pale moonlight on me as I listened in horror to what I was hearing. The sound that I heard was simply this, the sad, soft, rhythmic sobbing of a very small child. Step by each careful step, I approached the dark edifice before me, moving slower and slower before I realized the sound had ceased. The moon vanished back behind the storm clouds as the rain became heavy once more. I slowly pushed the door inward, and deep in the darkness of my hallway, I saw two large amber eyes glowing as if on fire, burning into my soul, and I heard a deep, horrific, demonic voice beckoning me inside.